Iran is dangerously close to having enough highly enriched uranium to build a dozen nuclear warheads. We cannot let this happen. If Iran's leaders get the bomb, I personally have no doubt that they will seek to use such weapons in the hope of wiping Israel off the map, bringing about a second Holocaust. We have about 6.5 million Jews here in Israel today, and bringing about the coming of the 12th Imam, their savior, and the end of days. Welcome to the Rosenberg Report, the only primetime news and analysis show produced in Israel by Israelis on any American television network. And if there were ever a need for a program like this, it would be now. After all, Israelis are living through the darkest and most dangerous week since Hamas invaded Israel on October 7th. Yet few media outlets in the U.S. are telling you exactly what's happening, why it matters, and how to pray. Tonight, I will. I'm going to walk you through exactly what happened last Saturday night when the Islamic Republic of Iran launched an historic, unprecedented, and direct attack on the state of Israel. I'm going to explain why Iran did it. I'm going to explain when and how Israel struck back. How did we retaliate? And why 10 million Israeli citizens right now are bracing for what could become the biggest and most apocalyptic missile and drone war in the history of the Middle East. It is not an exaggeration to say that the entire region is on edge, nor to say that the horrific war that Israel has already been fighting on multiple fronts for more than 6 months could suddenly become much, much worse and very, very fast. I'm going to also explain tonight why political infighting in Washington has so far prevented the U.S. from delivering billions of dollars in emergency wartime funding for Israel, funds that were promised to Israel by President Biden and Congress last October, and why Israel can't wait much longer. We're going to get to all of that tonight, including especially how Israel struck back. But I want to begin by walking you through a timeline of the last week's events to put all of these things into context. Monday, April 1st, a massive explosion occurs in Damascus in broad daylight, close to, but not in, the Iranian embassy. When the smoke clears, we learned that Iranian General Mohammad Reza Zahedi, one of the most senior commanders of Iran's Quds Force, or terrorist organization known as the Jerusalem Force, a man who's directly in charge of terror operations against Israel and in charge of supplying Iranian missiles and drones to Syria, Lebanon, and the Palestinians, he's been killed, along with a total of 7 other senior Iranian terrorist leaders. Now, no one takes credit for the attack, but Iranian officials immediately blame Israel and vow to take revenge. Friday, April 12th, U.S. President Joe Biden publicly warns that Iran is likely to attack Israel within 24 to 48 hours. Saturday, April 13th, sure enough, just 24 hours later, the Iranian regime launches an historic and unprecedented attack on the state of Israel. Specifically, Iran fires some 320 missiles and drones, suicide drones, at Israel. This includes 170 slow-moving but deadly suicide drones, which take about 7 to 9 hours to reach Israel. Plus, Iran fires 30 cruise missiles that take about 2 hours to reach Israel. And Iran fires more than 120 high-speed ballistic missiles that only take about 12 to 15 minutes to reach the Jewish state from Iran. Altogether, the missiles and drones are carrying 85 tons of explosives, making them capable of doing enormous damage and killing hundreds, if not thousands, of Israelis. Now, most of these missiles and drones are launched from Iranian soil, again, for the first time, though some are launched from Iranian terror bases in Iraq, Syria, and Yemen. And again, this is important. What makes the attack unprecedented is that never before in Israel's nearly 76-year modern history have the Ayatollahs and mullahs in Tehran ever chosen to launch an attack on the Jewish state directly from Iranian soil. Until this week, Iran has always used proxy terror organizations such as Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and the Houthi rebels in Yemen to attack us. But suddenly, this week, the wicked Iranian regime decides to come out of the shadows. No longer are they hiding behind their terror franchises, their terror proxies. Now they choose to attack us openly and directly. Immediately, Israeli commanders scramble hundreds of fighter jets Israel also puts all of its missile defense systems, the Arrow 1, 2, and 3, the David Sling system, the Iron Dome system, and the Patriot system on high alert. Simultaneously, the United States activates its much rehearsed but never battle-tested regional air defense system. Generals and air traffic controllers who are located at the U.S. Central Command Base, CENTCOM base, outside of Doha, the capital of the tiny Gulf country, Arab country known as Qatar, they scramble hundreds of American fighter jets and ask the Jordanians, Saudis, British, and French for help, and all those countries agree. Working closely together now, Israel, the U.S., and our Arab and European allies shoot down hundreds of Iranian missiles and drones. In fact, by the grace of God, the coalition shoots down upwards of 99% of the threats before they reach Israeli airspace. This is unprecedented in the history of the Middle East. Never before have Israeli, Sunni Arab, American, and European militaries worked together in real time to thwart an Iranian attack, especially an Iranian attack not aimed at Arab, American, or European targets, but at Israel. But unfortunately, this coalition, as good as they are, don't get all of the missiles and drones. Now, at All Israel News at that night, my team and I are covering events as they unfold all day on Saturday and throughout the night. At 1:51 in the morning, as I'm in our apartment in Jerusalem, writing the latest update for All Israel News, Lynn and I hear an explosion outside. Then another, then a third, all in rapid succession, but no sirens, no warnings on our app on our phone. I urge Lynn to immediately go to our bomb shelter while I go outside to see what's happening. And suddenly, within moments, the air raid sirens all over Jerusalem and all over Israel begin to sound. And coming from the east, across Jordanian airspace and across Jerusalem's night sky, I see at least a dozen, maybe 15, Iranian missiles and drones streaking overhead. I immediately start filming them on my phone and explaining what I'm seeing, even as I start seeing and hearing some of these missiles being intercepted. I got to tell you, it was a bizarre and surreal sight. Never in my 37 years of traveling to Israel, nor in my 10 years of living here as a dual U.S.-Israeli citizen, including living here in Jerusalem, have I ever seen missiles coming over Jerusalem from the east. Missiles and rockets usually come from Gaza, and that means they're coming from the southwest. As I rush back to my computer to post my video on social media and write our new lead story, this breaking news story, I see on Israeli TV and on social media videos of Iranian missiles and drones flying over the Western Wall, over the Dome of the Rock and the Temple Mount. It was absolutely unreal. And at this point, Lynn and I can feel our apartment shaking as Iranian missiles are being intercepted very close by. But still, a number of these missiles and drones get through, and in time they hit an Israeli Air Force base in the south. So why didn't it happen immediately during the wee hours of Sunday morning? Why has President Biden and his team been working feverishly to stop Israel from retaliating for Iran's unprecedented missile and drone attack? Why did Israel strike back against Iran anyway, despite Biden's warnings? And what's going to happen next? Good evening and welcome to the Rosenberg Report. I'll answer those questions in a moment, and we're going to get into that attack. But first, let me note that this coming week is Passover, Pesach in Hebrew, which begins on the evening of Monday, April 22nd, and ends on the evening of the following Monday, April 29th. Now, Passover, of course, as you know, is one of the most important holidays on the Jewish calendar, a time when Israelis and Jews all over the world remember God mercifully rescuing us from the tyrannical leaders of Egypt thousands of years ago. Now, this year, Passover comes at a time when the children of Israel urgently need the Lord to mercifully rescue us from the tyrannical leaders of Iran. Now, by the grace of God and the brave and heroic efforts of Israeli, American, Arab, and European soldiers, sailors, and airmen, not a single Israeli citizen or resident was killed by the Iranian strikes last week. Not one. That is really a miracle, truly a miracle, especially when you consider and you understand just how much firepower Iran had used to attack us. 320 missiles and suicide drones with 85 tons, that's right, 85 tons of explosives. That said, 32 Israelis were hospitalized last Sunday for injuries from falling shrapnel or for panic and stress-related conditions related to the Iranian attack. As All Israel News reported, the most serious case was that of a 7-year-old Israeli Bedouin girl by the name of Amina al-Hassouni. At this hour, Amina remains in serious condition and continues to be treated in Beersheva's Soroka Hospital after being severely wounded. Please pray for the Lord to fully heal Amina. Please pray for the Lord would draw her and her family and the entire Bedouin community in Israel to himself. Now, let's get back to our timeline so you can see how this thing continues to unfold. Sunday, April 14th. Shortly after the Iranian attack was over, all 3 members of Israel's war cabinet, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, and Benny Gantz, the former defense minister and IDF chief of staff, they were all poised to order the IDF to strike back and strike hard. But suddenly, President Biden calls Netanyahu and demands that Israel abort their retaliatory plans and stand down. Biden's argument is that since 99% of the Iranian missiles had been shot down and no Israelis have been killed, a retaliatory strike will simply escalate the situation and trigger a massive regional war. Netanyahu reportedly responds to Biden that it's Iran, not Israel, has already triggered a massive regional war. Israel has responded forcefully, has to respond forcefully, Netanyahu insists. Why? To teach the Ayatollahs a lesson and to restore Israeli deterrence. But Biden rejects the argument. Now, does he threaten to cut off U.S. funding and weapons if Israel goes ahead with the strike? That's not clear at this hour. But whatever Biden says, it works. Netanyahu and his colleagues call off the counterstrike on Sunday, and then again on Monday, and again on Tuesday, and on Wednesday. Which brings us to Thursday, April 18th. On the Rosenberg Report, I explained that night conflicting reports in the Israeli media about why the IDF has not taken any action. One report says the war cabinet has definitely decided to strike back, but isn't going to do so until after the Passover holidays. Another report says that Netanyahu has agreed not to retaliate against Iran because Biden is giving Israel permission to invade Rafah, the southernmost city in Gaza, to destroy the remaining brigades of Hamas terrorists and finish the Gaza war once and for all. That night, I concede that I don't know if either report is accurate, nor does anyone in Israel, and that's why everyone's on edge, waiting to see what will happen next. But as it turns out, we don't have to wait long. Friday, April 19th, just after midnight, Israel's war cabinet finally orders the IDF into action, despite Biden's warnings to stand down. At 4:41 in the morning, local time, I'm awakened by a text message from a former U.S. intelligence official who tells me that Israel has just hit 2 sites in Iran, specifically in the area of Isfahan, in what he describes in the text as a surgical strike, meaning it was not a massive strike designed to obliterate Iran's entire nuclear and missile program. Rather, it's a limited attack designed to tell Iran's leaders, don't mess with us. We can hit you anywhere, anytime, and there's nothing you can do about it. At 4:47, then, I post a breaking news message on social media reporting major explosions are occurring in and around Isfahan, a city in central Iran where major Iranian military and nuclear bases are located. I add that these are possible Israeli surgical strikes. And soon, I publish the first of several stories on All Israel News, which my colleagues and I update throughout the day. Now, even at this hour, details remain murky. Many of these details are classified, but this is what we know so far. First, Israeli leaders listened carefully to President Biden's arguments, but they decided they had to strike back at Iran regardless of American objections. Second, Israel did not hit any of Iran's nuclear sites. Rather, Israeli long-range fighter jets fired missiles at a major Iranian military base near Isfahan, from which some of the missiles and suicide drones that Iran had fired at Israel last Sunday were launched. Third, Israeli leaders are calculating that this limited retaliatory strike will convince Iran not to escalate further. And Israeli leaders are also calculating that Biden will not become enraged, but will accept the fact that Israel simply had to punch back to teach Tehran a lesson. That said, Israelis remain on edge, bracing for yet another Iranian attack, possibly soon. And that's why I ask evangelical Christians all over the world to pray without ceasing. After all, Iran is dangerously close to having enough highly enriched uranium to build a dozen nuclear warheads. And we cannot let this happen. If Iran's leaders get the bomb, I personally have no doubt that they will seek to use such weapons in the hope of wiping Israel off the map, which they keep promising to do over the years, bringing about a second Holocaust. We have about 6.5 million Jews here in Israel today, and bringing about the coming of the 12th Imam, their savior, and the end of days. That said, Israelis need wisdom. That's why we need to be praying for them. Do Israeli leaders need Biden's support to finish off Hamas in Gaza? Absolutely we do. Do we need Biden to send us more military aid, more weapons, and keep resupplying us with ammunition along with missile and rocket interceptors? Absolutely. Do we need to keep working with the US, the Europeans, and our Sunni Arab allies to build a stronger and more unified regional alliance against Iran? Absolutely we do. Do we also need Biden to keep vetoing crazy UN Security Council resolutions like he did on Thursday, to his credit, when he vetoed an effort by 12 different countries to suddenly and unilaterally create a sovereign Palestinian state without any negotiations with Israel? Yes, absolutely. We need Biden to keep helping us in these areas. So please pray for Biden and his team. Please pray for us. Like all Israelis, I'm grateful for all that Biden and the U.S. has done to stand with us here in Israel this week. But I have to tell you that I am also outraged that Biden was feverishly trying to pressure us all week not to retaliate against Iran's unprecedented attack with 320 missiles and drones. Yeah, we shot them down with U.S. and regional help, but what if they hit us? I mean, just because your bulletproof vest stops the bullet doesn't mean someone didn't try to kill you. Now, personally, I believe that the IDF should soon launch a much stronger and much more devastating attack to fully destroy and neutralize Iran's nuclear and missile and drone threats before it's too late. Now, I personally believe that the U.S. should participate in such attack because Americans are just as much threatened by Iran, a nuclear Iran, as Israelis. What's more, I believe that the U.S. should be standing with Israel 100%. We say in Hebrew, mea achuz, not telling us not to strike back at Iran, not warning us not to finish off Hamas in Gaza, not trashing our prime minister with obscenities that I can't even repeat on Christian television. Enough is enough. The President of the United States should start treating Israel like the true loyal ally that we are, that's facing a genocidal enemy, and stop treating us like some annoyance that might set the entire Middle East on fire. Now, there are two more things that Biden must do immediately to stand with Israel, stand against Iran, and get our hostages out of Gaza. First, in the fall, in October, the House of Representatives passed a $14.5 billion emergency military aid package for Israel. The Senate took forever to pass their version, but they lumped it together with funding for Taiwan and for Ukraine and for a bunch of other things. And the two houses, the House and the Senate, have not been able to figure this thing out, and they're at loggerheads. And the aid has not gotten to Israel during a war. It's been basically 6 months. Now, this weekend, the House and Senate, the House is supposed to take up the package again, but Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, an evangelical, has actually separated out an Israel funding bill, a Ukraine funding bill, a Taiwan funding bill, and then a potpourri of some other issues. The Israel bill is now $26 billion and includes $9 billion for humanitarian relief in Gaza and so forth, and also a lot of money to build more and buy more Iron Dome interceptors and Patriot missile batteries and so forth. So it's critical that President Biden knock heads together and get a bipartisan passage and deal done so that this $26 billion can get to Israel immediately. Enough. Stop trying to put it together with Ukraine and Taiwan and all the rest of the stuff. Take individual bills, pass them or don't pass them separately, but get Israel done first and get that $26 billion bill on the president's desk, sign, and get the money flowing. That's the first thing Biden needs to do. And he needs to show serious leadership instead of trashing Israel and trying to prevent us from defending ourselves. Second, Biden has to put enormous pressure on that small, tiny Arab country in the Gulf called Qatar. Now, yes, the U.S. has a base there. The CENTCOM base, Central Command base, is in Doha, just south of Doha, Qatar. But Qatar, that government, is playing both sides. They're supposed to be an ally of the United States, but they're also an ally of Iran. And they're an ally of Hamas. The top Hamas leaders in the world, the terrorist leaders of Hamas, live in Doha. They live in Qatar in luxury. They're not in some tunnel. They're not killing people, but they're directing this stuff. They're raising money. They're working with Iran. This is crazy. Biden has to use the leverage and pressure that the world's only superpower has, including or to force Qatar, to force Hamas to let all 133 hostages out. Hamas keeps refusing every reasonable deal to get the hostages out and have a temporary ceasefire in Gaza that Israel offers. And Biden is not putting the pressure on Qatar, but Qatar has the maximum amount of influence and leverage because the top Hamas leaders live there. So why not tell the leaders of Qatar, look, we're going to pull our whole CENTCOM base out if you don't force Hamas to release all the Israeli hostages. We're going to arrest those Hamas leaders. We're going to put sanctions on Qatar if you don't do this. Biden has to be serious, and it's actually quite offensive that he's let the funding the emergency military aid funding for Israel languish for 6 months, and it's offensive that he has not used serious pressure on Qatar, and these hostages remain 194, 195, 196 days, and so forth. It's just not right. So please pray that Biden would move, that the Congress would move, and pray that these hostages get out quickly.